The ease of use that's always been the promise of Mac is still there, and then some. The power is fantastic, and now the price is right in the sweet spot.
It's games that drive technology, because that's the area where people want the next gizmo, want it to be a bit more powerful, want faster ray tracing, want all these different things.
We've chosen to make a major commitment to the Macintosh by bringing our top product, Tomb Raider, over to the Mac for the first time. Apple is enabling technology for our software, and I think that it's time that the IDOS games and other games come back to the Apple platform.
We came back into the Mac market to make a version of Cosmopolitan Virtual Makeover specifically for the iMac because we're so excited about it.
We have more new games coming out for the Mac in the second half of 1998 than we've ever had in a 6-month period since Macsoft was conceived.
We brought our Cyber Studio and a personal edition to give a full-powered version for the iMac, what I think the best consumer computer today.
You can just imagine what that means for every consumer running the full-color, very fast, real-time technologies that MetaCreations creates.
If we're going to do anything with learning in it, we have to be on the Macintosh. There's so much tradition there, particularly among educators.
The past year at Microsoft has been the best year for our Macintosh business in years.
There's no way anybody can look at Apple Computer 2 years ago and look at Apple Computer today and not be blown away with the new vitality and energy that we see from all the Apple employees and from the Apple customers too. This is not religion, this is business.
I was here for the first Macintosh, and I can't believe that we're recreating it again.
If Apple sells more computers to the consumer market, we're going to sell more games. It's that simple.
Apple is back, and they get it.
So we've survived. We've demonstrated that we've got a really great, stable business. We've laid out the roadmap of a fantastic product strategy, and we're getting apps back on the Mac in unprecedented numbers. So what more could you ask for? Well, there's always something, right? The last one is growth. Well, if all this stuff's so good, show me some growth. How are you going to grow, right? And again, when I hear these things, I think it's great. Because what it means is we're building the foundation of the layers below, and people are looking at the next layer, right? And so growth has now come up, and that's great. And I think it'll come up even more as we tell the application story and people understand that apps are coming back to the Mac. Okay, what's the next thing to be skeptical about? Growth. So what are we going to do about growth? A year ago, when the new management team got to Apple, we looked at the marketplace and we said, although Apple's market share has declined, it's still extraordinarily strong in the design and publishing market, where Apple's market share is between 50 and 90, depending on what segment you look at, and in the education market, where Apple owns over half of the installed base and about 35% of the new selling units, bigger than anybody else. What we didn't say was that Apple had declined rapidly in the consumer market, a market that it invented. Apple invented the market for selling computers to consumers, and yet it had failed to come out with compelling products at consumer price points for several years. So even though we didn't talk about it, we began a program to get back into the consumer market with a vengeance. And this is where we see a tremendous amount of growth for ourselves. We are doing extremely well in the design and publishing market and starting to do much better in the education market. But adding the consumer market to that will make both of those even stronger. And we're going to do it with the iMac. We think we've got some incredibly unique assets to go make this happen beyond just the products themselves. So what are some of those? I'd like to cover 4 today. The first one is the brand. In a world that is completely overloaded with information, where people are overwhelmed with information coming at them every day, brands become even more important. People don't have the time to choose everything in their lives, and brands help them make those choices. And there is no brand in the computer industry that is as remotely as strong as Apple's. Apple's brand around the world is right up there with Disney and Sony and Nike in terms of recognition and in terms of consumer loyalty. Now, it's also worth pointing out that the other three brands on this slide have all had serious problems. Look at Disney when Michael Eisner got there. Look at Nike and Sony over the last half a dozen years. But when these companies have straightened out their problems, their brands have come back stronger than ever. Brands take decades to build, and we think we have one of the best in the world. We are also investing. We are also investing heavily in our brand. And when we started our Think Different campaign, we said, Apple has to tell people who we are and what we stand for. And we thought a lot about how to do that. And the best way that we could think of was to say who our heroes are. You can learn a lot about somebody by asking them who their heroes are, can't you? And so we've said, these are our heroes, and we've put them out there, trying to tell people who we are, what we stand for, what our values are, alongside some slightly more aggressive product advertising. The second unique asset we have is our installed base. Apple is very fortunate to have an installed base of somewhere between 22 and 25 million customers, and I've used the low end of that range. 22 million customers here on this chart. 10 million of them are in the consumer market. There are 10 million Macs in homes. We do a lot of research on this, and our research shows that these people have been defecting at less than 10% a year to the opposition, as Douglas Adams was saying. Less than 10%. These are very loyal customers. But most of their Macs are 3, 4, 5 years old. They have not been upgrading as they should have and as their counterparts in the Wintel space have been, because Apple has not been offering them great products at those consumer price points. And so we think these 10 million consumers are ripe for a product like an iMac. In addition to that, the 6 million education machines out there, many of them are ripe for upgrading, and the response from the education market to iMac has been off the charts. So 16 million of just our own installed base to go after, not to mention the tens of millions of Wintel customers and the millions of customers each year entering the market that do not own a computer at all. The third unique asset we have is what we call design or fashion. We believe that as the price points come down, as the consumer market blossoms, design and fashion become even more important. Let me give you an example. This is the most popular watch in the world. And it's popular not because it tells time better than any other watch. It's popular because of its design. I'll give you an interesting statistic. 10 years ago, the average American owned one watch. Because of design entering watches, the watch market, today the average American owns 7 watches. Okay? 7 watches because of design, because of fashion. Now, when we dream of this, right? And one of the great joys that I found at Apple a year ago was the best industrial design team I've ever seen in my life. Right? The designs for the new PowerBook G3 and the iMac, they're all done inside Apple by some brilliant, brilliant, super hard-working people. And you're going to see a continual stream of very innovative design out of Apple. I think the best in the industry by a mile. And lastly, let us not forget simplicity. We've got the easiest to use, easiest to set up product in the world. The other guys have tried to copy us for 10 years, but it's still not as good. And for once in a long time, we're not standing still anymore. So, how do we measure simplicity? I've got my final video to show you, and it's wonderful. It's a simplicity shootout, and I'd like to run it now.
The iMac's superior performance is easy to benchmark, but its real power lies in its simplicity. How do you measure simplicity? Meet Adam Taggart, age 26. He will be assembling a Hewlett-Packard Pavilion 8250. Meet 7-year-old Johan Thomas. He'll be setting up an iMac. Johan will be assisted by Brody, a border collie. Let's start the clock.